I am super excited to be joined today by Paul Conant. We just recorded a couple great episodes of the podcast. Paul is the owner and founder of Gazoom Marketing, so you can go check that out. He has over 25 years experience in marketing and online business and all of that good stuff, building businesses just in general. And we're just talking about food because he's a big foodie, much like myself. So, Paul, what's up, man?
How are you?
Good, good. It was so much fun having you on. I like how we got sidetracked in that second episode because we were talking about phone
That's me.
calls, I think, and we're like, food. Let's talk about that for a minute.
We're talking about tripe and it's like sofrito. It's like crazy.
Yeah.
But that's my fault. I apologize.
No, don't. I love it. That's what's fun. I have three major passions in my life. Three things that have always been, and to me always will be. And that's number one, God and my faith, of course, because that kind of drives everything. Number two is conversations. I love to talk to people. I love to have conversations with people and get to know them better. And the third thing is food. I've always loved food. And food conversation kind of go hand in hand, right? I mean, you eat
It
something,
does, yeah.
break bread with people.
Yeah. I mean, that's the nature of our being, right? I mean, it all goes hand in hand. So it's yeah, I mean, if you can't, you know, when you cook, you're kind of expressing yourself. You're putting, and I love doing things that I have no idea what I'm doing. So I don't like to take a recipe and say, oh yeah, here's the recipe, and let me follow it, right? So I like to say, okay, here's the thing I like to do. Let me move it together, especially because my wife is Brazilian. And, so she's like, I'd like to have feijoada. So I'm like, great, let's cook feijoada. That's kind of a pain in the neck. It takes a long time. You have to know what the heck you're doing. And you kind of follow a recipe, but you don't. I mean, you know what? A lot of our food, whether it be Italian or Portuguese, a lot of the food was brought up because we didn't have a lot of money. I mean, we were talking about tripe and sofrito and, the squash flowers. I mean, that wasn't it. Now has become a delicacy, right? It's like, wow, my God, if I could have this, it's, I'll pay big bucks for it in a restaurant. But in the old days, it wasn't. They just took the scraps and then they made what they had to do with the scraps. And then somebody else, maybe the butcher, gave the steak to the people that had the money. And then all the organs were given to, right, my grandfather and your grandfather. And then they kind of concocted something to make with it. So it's great because they've handed that down to us, and we could do that, and we appreciate that. And I'm trying to get it so that my daughters say, do you like it? Oh, I don't like that. Try it, right? Just give it a try. Put it on a sandwich. Like we go to the clubs, they put it on a sandwich roll. But it's like, try it. I mean, at least try it. If you like it, if you don't like it, and sometimes they like it and they're like, wow, great. Sometimes they don't like it, but then they revisit it a few years later and like, great, I love that now. So it's all you can do. You can just kind of try to loop them in and make it happen.
Yeah, I think that it's funny how something like tripe for you and I is like, we like it. It's delicious. It's something we can sit and eat. If someone's never had it before and they learn about what it is before they try, like, because when I was a kid, nobody told me. They were just like, here, eat this. I'm like,
eat
okay.
it.
And I'm
That's
like,
it.
hey, it's pretty good. And then they're like, later, they're like, you know what that is? I'm like, I don't care. It tastes good. And so, like, a lot of people
That's
now.
the problem, right? You have a preconceived, I don't want to eat a cow's stomach, or, I don't want to eat heart and lung or whatever. And I don't think you could get the lung anymore. It's only the heart now for
I think so, yeah.
right? So, but in the old day, it was everything, right? They cut it up, they fried it, they put it in. But you're exactly right. If you start, and it could go, this goes for food or for anything, right? Once you start realizing and thinking about things, you start getting preconceived notions on how you want to, do it. And that's when it usually gets screwed up, whether it's the food or, your marketing, right? So it goes hand in hand. It's like sometimes you have to let the experts do what they do and then let the people that just, paint your vision and then try to mold that into the vision. So, yeah, for sure. But it's funny to have, I appreciate that. I didn't appreciate that stuff when I was younger, right? But now I appreciate it even more because it's like, now I know how to make it and cook it. And yeah, so it's a good time.
And I love how you said paint your vision, because even when I was cooking professionally and now doing what I do in marketing and media and all of that stuff today, it starts with that vision. And even when I'm talking to prospective clients and we're having those conversations, I call it painting the picture of possibilities. You have to cast that vision. You have to have that vision. Take it simply when you're in the kitchen making something. I mean, it could be the first time you're ever making it, but you have to have a vision. And does it always turn out the way that you envision it? No, I mean,
No.
My mentor chef that I worked with, I'll never forget. He was the most talented chef I ever worked with. He was on the U.S. Culinary Olympic team, was the captain of the team, won a bunch of different competitions, just brilliant all the way around. And I remember when I became the sous chef, he wrote the menu for a special event and gave it to me. And it was my job to make sure that everyone knew how to prepare their dishes and then to demo all of them. So the cooks would make all the components, and then I would do the presentation, and then they would know, okay, this is how I have to do it. And there was one specific dish. He brought all the components and I made it. And the chef came over and he looked at it after I laid it all out. And he goes, it's always nice every once in a while when you have a preconceived idea of something and it comes out exactly how you thought it would. And I was like, yeah, no, it made me think, because even for someone like him who was so brilliant and made things look so easy when he was doing it, very artistic, that even for him, when he conceptualizes an idea,
Yeah.
it didn't always turn out exactly the way he initially intended it to.
Yeah. It's tough, because it's like in your head, it's one thing, and a lot has to be said about that, right? Because even dealing with kids, right? If they have one thing in their head when you say something, and when it actually comes out, they may think, "Oh, well, you said this." Well, I didn't really say that. You can't really be vague, and right? You got to be kind of boom. You got to know what you want. But for me to watch chefs do what they do is pretty amazing. And who knew 20 years ago chefs would be the new rock stars of what's going on, because it's amazing when you see some of the things that they're able to do and really show. I mean, the whole online space for, I think, chefs is a big one. I love to see shows where chefs are showing you kind of what they do, and live streaming or whatever it is, and you can kind of get an idea of how they make the type of food they make. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to make exactly what they make. Make your own food, have your own plan, do the own thing, but at least see how they kind of organize themselves. Because I'm telling you, when I cook, I'm organized, right? So I'm kind of putting things, washing things as I go. My wife cooks, it's a mess, man. She's like, she can actually cook, which she never thought she could, but she actually does a good job cooking. But it's like the mess is like, right? So that's part of it, right? You got to make sure that you clean that stuff up and do it the right way. So it's, it's funny when you see how it all is put together. When it's put together, it's like music in motion. You clean, you cook, it presents well, it tastes good. Wow, it's a home run. It doesn't always work that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's funny because when you're in that restaurant kitchen, if you were someone who just walks through the kitchen, it would just look like a complete, like everyone's everywhere, things are happening. But when you're in it and you understand it, it's really, it's a dance. It's
Yeah,
controlled
it's a dance,
chaos.
for sure.
And, so let me ask you this. As someone who has a diverse food background, are people ever afraid or nervous to let you try their food or to cook for you or to do anything like that?
Not for me, but my brother, I think, gets that a lot. They'll be
Yeah.
like, I don't know, should I make it for him? And sometimes I don't even think. I make something, I'm like, here, try it. He's pretty good about tasting it. And, I think when he's on his shows, he gets a little nervous sometimes because he's watching it being prepped and he's like, oh, God, what am I in for? But it's, and in some cases, it's great, right? Because,
Mhm.
but you don't, it's
Mhm.
the presentation. The mind is visualizing something and then it comes out. But yeah, for me, no, I think I get more people want me to taste it because they're like, what do you think? Think your brother would like that? And I'm like, yeah, sure. He eats anything, man. This guy, at least he lived on meatball grinders back. They don't call them grinders in Pennsylvania, do they? It's a
Hoagies,
hoagie.
meatball
Hoagie.
hoagie. Yeah.
So we used to get these grinders that were like, foot long on Militi's bread or Como's bread. This is back in Waterbury. And it was like this old Italian bread. And
Oh
it was
yeah.
really, you rip the roof of your mouth eating these things. They were
It's the
fantastic.
best.
So it's, I
That's the
miss them.
best. But it's funny. The reason I asked that is because it came down to, it's my girlfriend, right? So she's brilliant. She's a doctor, super intelligent. And when it comes to cooking, she gets super like nervous. Like it got to the point where she made this dish. Her and her brother made this recipe together. Like they live in different places, but they made it and talked about it, took pictures of it, sent it back. But she deleted the pictures from her phone and wouldn't tell me. It's like, I'm like, why? Like, I would want to try that. She's like, well, it's not good enough for you. I'm like, what do you mean? It's like, I like to
No.
eat, like, I'll eat
Well, you're a chef.
anything. Like,
You got that in your background. Me,
she's trying to
I'm
like,
the guinea pig.
she's trying to like hide it. I'm like, come on. Like, I mean, if there's anything she's gonna hide, let it be food. But
Yeah,
the
true.
point is, like, it's like, really? You deleted it? She's like,
I
well, I
can see
needed
it.
space on my phone. But yeah,
Yeah,
so I
I can
get
see it.
that. I get that all the time, and I'm like, but I'm not that kind of eater. Like, if I make something, I have high expectations for it
Right.
because I know what I'm capable of. But if I'm just eating it, as long as it's good, I'm happy. Like,
Hey man, as long as you wash your hands and you're clean
exactly.
making it, I'm all right with
And
it.
I think too, it's the intent, much like in marketing, it's the intent behind it, right?
Yeah,
If you're someone who really tried hard and you did it because, you want to make something great for someone else, or you want to, if I know you like addition, I've never made it, but my intent is to try to make it as best I can so that you really enjoy it.
Mm.
You're not going to taste it and be like, I hate this. This is disgusting, right? You're going to find
Exactly right.
something to like about it. And I think
Yeah.
with marketing, it's kind of the same way when your product, your service, whatever business you're doing, if your intention is really to help that other person solve that problem, then I think that even if it only solves it partially at some point, but yes, that partially is really good and good effort, they'll give you the chance to make up the back end
Yeah.
because they'll
I
find
mean,
something to like about
I
it.
don't think people realize that too. I mean, it's, if I had a proven method for every scenario, every time, I wouldn't help you. I would go and start another business in your town and I would do that. That would be my main business, right? I mean, so it doesn't, you don't know. I mean, for one, dentist or chiropractor, this method might work. Somewhere else, this might work. So that's part of the marketing process is, I think I heard a while back, there was the best idea about, they were explaining out how marketing works, and I forget who did it, and I don't want to not credit them for this, but it's not my quote, but they said it's like drilling for oil. So if you go to drill for oil, part of the budget is that they have to drill multiple areas multiple times. They just don't go to one area, drill, tap the vein, and then leave, right? They go and they drill and they're not successful, and they drill and they're not successful, and they drill and they keep doing this over and over again until they find that vein, and then they maximize that vein when they do it. It's very similar in marketing. I mean, we'll try social. Does it work? Might not work for you. Works for this other person. Great. Let's try this. Let's try that. Let's try. But, the thing is, because we're in the business, we have a better idea or a better concept of what might work. So we know, like right now, I could pretty much guarantee what might work for you is social media, right? And here's the thing: not just doing a vague social media ad with stock picture of somebody holding, and it looks really fake and phony, but it's actually you in social media saying, "Hey, it's Paul Conant. Stop down at the dental office. We have a new patient special." They're like, "Wow, I could relate with that person." And if you could do that, and now we have high quality video and phones, and we have so many ways of making it look right, we could pretty much guarantee we can make that work for you. Will it work 100% of the time? No. What was that, Anchorman? Works 50% of the time, all the time, something like that. So but you don't know. It might work. I mean, I would tell you we're about 80% successful with hitting, the vein for marketing and tapping into that for people. But the 20% of the time, you have to know that I'm not going to say, peace out, I'm out of here. No, I'm going to be here and I'm going to help you out until we get this thing to work. Yep. But you have to be flexible and you have to understand it and you have to work with it. But
and the funny thing is too, I've had situations or instances with clients where I'm like, hey, let's try something new. Let's try this. This is a new thing, but it seems like it's going to work. Like intellectually, when I map it out, it looks like it's going to work. Let's give it a shot. And they say, okay, after you talk it through, and then you try it. And if it doesn't work, if you own it and if you own it and you eat it and you take it, sometimes they respect you more than if you wouldn't have tried.
Because conceptually, it sounded like it was a good deal, right? It sounded like, hey, this could work, right? I don't know. It's a possibility. And if you let them kind of make the decision, be a partner on it,
yep,
it's a home run.
And the worst thing you can do is make excuses. If it doesn't work out, if you own it, and your intent is there.
I always try to, under promise and over deliver. In the beginning days, it was always I'd try to over deliver, and try to over promise and because I wanted to. But then as I got older, I was like, you know what? It's probably not going to work for you. But I want to do it. And then it's like, they had no expectation. All of a sudden it rocked and they're like, oh my God, this is great. And you're like, yeah, well, I'm glad it worked out because it doesn't always work out for people. You never know.
That. I like the way you phrased that.
You do have to set up good, I will tell you this. Everybody that goes into a program, whether it be marketing or business or anything, especially nowadays, 20, 30 years ago, you could have probably got away with just hanging a shingle, going out there and starting a business, and you probably make it. Nowadays, no way. If you don't have a plan put together and have somebody holding you accountable to that plan, because you may be an expert in carpentry, dentistry, whatever it is, you may be the expert in it, but unless you have that plan and somebody holding accountable to it, and I'm not talking about a 10-year plan because I just don't think you could think 10 years. Shit, I couldn't think 3 months out. Look at what we're going through right now. So, but have a plan. What's your contingency plan? What are you doing? The better you are with that, and the more you spend some time, thinking time doing that, the better your business will be, for sure. That's a guarantee.
Yep. Intent matters. And Paul, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for the podcast. Thank you for doing this. If you're watching this right now, stay tuned. The podcast episodes will be coming up real soon. If you're listening to this right now on the podcast, you can go listen to those episodes right now. So go find them. Paul, it's been so great. I want to remind people to find your podcast and subscribe. The profitprotocol.com is where they can find that and subscribe. You have an awesome podcast all about, your 7 pillars of successful business and all of that stuff, which is awesome. So thank you so much. And let's do this again real soon.
Yeah, Barry, this is really fun. I mean, I forgot I was even in the podcast. I just was like, I'm talking to you like, we're best buddies. So it worked out pretty well. You're a great guy. You got a great podcast, and you're doing good things. And I like that because it's, there's so many podcasts, so many things going on out there. But I like your format. I like the way you do it. I think you're doing great things. So thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. I appreciate the kind words, and we'll definitely talk again soon because, you get 2 Italians together who love food.
Oh, we're done.
That bond never breaks.
Thank you.